Welcome to the Holistic Living Podcast, my beautiful friends. You can expect my uncensored, real, and honest thoughts on a wide variety of health topics. If you love to learn on ways to improve your health, your life, your mindset, your emotions, and everything in between in a natural way, you are in the right place, and I am so excited to have you here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 24 of the Holistic Living Podcast. Today, I am sharing with you some tips that can hopefully help you eat out at a restaurant if you have a lot of dietary restrictions, and kind of how to avoid ideally flaring up after you go out. So obviously, this is for people who have more health issues or higher inflammation. I work mainly with people who have autoimmune disease, and so most of my clients are very inflamed, and there's a lot of foods that they cannot have. And so it does make it very challenging to go and eat out and enjoy a meal out when there are so many ingredients that you need to be aware of. For myself, I currently don't have to worry about anything. As long as the food is gluten-free for me, I'm good to go. But in the past, when I was trying to reverse my psoriasis and my autoimmune issues and gut issues, I was very restrictive on what I was able to eat. And I was like gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, no canola oil or bad oils, and a host of other things, including no nightshades, no yeast. So it made it very challenging to go out and eat and to have the restaurant meet my demands and meet my needs. It was really hard. And so that's what I'm going to try to share with you today, is just some things that you can look for, or some things you can ask for, a couple supplements that might help to minimize flares as well. But I do want to say one thing really quick, and that is, if you are at a point in your life where you're really inflamed and you're trying to reverse a health issue, you're going to need to be really strict with your diet. But the point here is you're not going to be restrictive forever. The plan is that once you can get your body into remission and bring your inflammation down and fix your gut or whatever your issues are that you're working on, then you can go back to eating a little more normally. So when you are going out to restaurants in the future, it's not always going to be this difficult. As long as you're picking decently clean things, you should be okay. And that's where I'm at now. Is I do go out, and I love, love, love to go out and eat. I'm such a foodie, and for me, eating and having that experience is everything. So I go and I enjoy food, and sometimes it's going to have bad oils, or there's going to be some added sugar or things that are not so great. And because I'm only going out, here and there, it's not an everyday thing, I will just enjoy it. Again, as long as it's gluten-free, then for me, I'm okay with that. But in the past, like I said, I had to be really strict. So anyway, let's get into it. The first tip, I'll start with the tips, then we'll do the supplements. The first tip that I have for you is you need to research the restaurant before you go. This is something that I had to kind of take on for myself when it was time to go out and meet up with friends. I mean, you don't want to be that high maintenance friend, but if it's about your health and this is something that you need to be doing, your friends should understand. If they don't, maybe there's a bigger problem, but your friends should understand if you have to be the one to choose the restaurant. And that's what I did for a while. I would say, you know what, at this point in my life, I can't eat a lot of things, and those restaurants that you guys want to go to, there's nothing for me to eat. Do you think we could try this one instead? So first and foremost, find something in your area that already has gluten-free options on the menu, already can accommodate dairy-free, and can accommodate, things like that. I find for me, like going to a pub, I mean, nowadays you can get gluten-free stuff pretty much everywhere, but you're going to have a lot lower quality, a lot more deep fried food if you're choosing a pub versus a more fresh, nicer restaurant. So don't go try and do pubs or fast food joints. Go for something that has a lighter, more clean menu already, and that is showing that they can at least accommodate gluten and dairy free. If you can find a restaurant like that, there's a great chance that they're happy to make more swaps for you and are able to make more swaps. So that's what I do, is I look at a menu where I can see that they have, like beautiful salmon and rice, or nice bright salads and things on their menu. So I'm already noticing that they're more health conscious, which means that they know that people who are eating there are more health conscious. And so they're prepared to make those demands or those accommodations for you. Whereas if you're going to like a burger joint or a pub, most of the people eating there are not super concerned about their health, right? And so if you come in and start saying, I need this and this and this and this, and they're just going to look at you like, yeah, we can't do that. So choose your place wisely. It can be hard, I know, in certain places where people live. I live in Niagara in Canada, and we are so blessed to have so many restaurants to choose from. So it's definitely a lot easier. I'm not saying it's going to be easy for everyone, as it does depend where you live, not just the country, but if you're in the US, which state you live in. If you're in Canada, which province, what you have access to. Is it a bigger city or a small town? But usually, just find the best restaurant in your area that has the cleanest looking food on the menu and that can accommodate gluten-free, and then start there. A lot of restaurants, what I realized when I was going through my health journey, a lot of restaurants have secret menus, specifically gluten-free menus, but you have to ask for it. So you won't see it on their website, but as soon as you go sit in and you tell them you are gluten-free, they will, most of the places, at least in my area that I go to, say, oh, we have a special gluten-free menu for you. So that's like already one big allergen that's off, your worry. And then from there, you can order something on that menu that you can maybe tweak further. So here is my go-to, not anymore because now I eat normally, but like back when I was super strict, this is my go-to. I would either do a burger with a lettuce wrap, so I would say no bun, and as long as the burger is gluten-free, if there's a breadcrumb in the burger patty, I would ask for a chicken breast, just grilled chicken breast. I would say please don't use any oil. If you can, use butter or olive oil if you have it. Whether they actually did that or not, I mean, who knows? But the places that I was choosing were more higher end places. And so I feel like they were very accommodating and most likely were very conscious about their requests. But I would just do a lettuce wrap burger with either chicken breast or beef. And then I would ask for like the onions or whatever toppings you wanted on there. And then I would either ask them, instead of sweet potato fry, to do a baked sweet potato, which I've never once had a restaurant tell me they can't do that. So that's a great way to go. Or I would ask just for like a side of cooked rice. Now, keep in mind, a lot of times this is not obviously going to be organic, but you want to choose your battles. If you're going out to eat, unless you're finding an organic restaurant, you're not going to expect to have gluten and dairy-free and no bad oils and no sugar and, nothing that you don't want. And on top of that, have it be organic. If you can, amazing. But most likely you're not going to. So this is where once in a while, it's okay to not be so obsessive about, organic and non-organic. Enjoy the meal, enjoy your company that you're with, and at least just know you're not getting allergens. So don't stress if the meat maybe has some antibiotics in it or whatever they pump into the meat these days. But just as long as you know that the ingredients themselves are not going to cause inflammation, then you're okay. So my go-to was a burger with lettuce wrap. I would do a side of rice or a side of baked sweet potato or a side of steamed broccoli. As boring as this sounds, that was my go-to for the longest time. Another thing that I would do if I couldn't get a burger or wasn't feeling like a burger is I would ask for some salmon, which most menus, maybe unless it's a pub, will have salmon on the menu. So I would just get the salmon and some side of like a quinoa or a salad. And most restaurants were very accommodating for that as well. Now, in terms of other things, there's so many meals you can choose from. So if you're like, I want a pasta, but I cannot have gluten, then first and foremost, ask for a gluten-free noodle. If you are not wanting nightshades, but you also can't have a dairy-based pasta, my go-to, and a lot of times they were kind of looking at me like, you're making your own menu here, but they were, at least again in my area, were so accommodating. And my go-to would be olive oil with garlic, salt, a little lemon, and I would ask them to add some chili flakes, but you can leave that out if you don't want the nightshades. So it was like a garlicky olive oil dressing, and they would put fresh basil on it for me. So literally like a pesto minus the Parmesan cheese. It was amazing. So I would just be like, toss the noodle in olive oil, some fresh garlic, salt, a little lemon, and some basil. And they would totally do that for me, and then sprinkle chili flakes on the top. And so I would have my pasta with chicken breast on the top. So I always hit that protein, and then would usually have like a salad on the side or something. For salads, most of the time they had a pre-made dressing, which I had a feeling had bad oils and stuff that I knew would flare me up at the time. So I would just ask for a bottle of olive oil and a bottle of balsamic, and they would bring like a little dispenser to the table, and I would just drizzle olive oil and balsamic, and I was good to go. Now you can get even more intense and bring your own dressing. You can get like little tiny little tiny containers, pour a dressing from home in a container, bring it with you, and just ask for a salad with the dressing on the side and use your own dressing to drizzle on top. So you can definitely bring your own seasonings or sauces if you wanted to, if you're really, really sensitive to what you can eat. So there's so many ways to go about eating and making the food work for you at a restaurant, but just find a place that's not going to be, I guess, super frustrated with your requests. I did go to a restaurant one time, and I was with my brother and some friends and my husband, and everyone was ordering normal food. And the only request I made, like literally the only request, it was a burger, a chicken burger with like goat cheese and all that. It was delicious. And all I asked was, do you have a gluten-free bun? And she says, no, we don't. So I said, do you think I could just get a lettuce wrap then? And she rolled her eyes at me so big, the waitress, and she was like, what do you mean a lettuce wrap? And I was like, just wrap the burger in a lettuce so I can grab it instead of a bun. And she was like, yeah, we can't do that. And I was like, is it okay then to just put it on a bed of lettuce so I can eat it with a fork and knife but still get the lettuce? And she was like, I have to talk to the kitchen. I'm not sure. And she was so rude about it. They ended up bringing it out the way I asked for it, which was nice. But I was like, wow, like it really wasn't that hard to make a request. But sometimes people just do not want to go out of their way at all. And they see you having an allergy as like being high maintenance, when really it's a health concern. But with that in mind, something you can do is call ahead. So if you're going to a restaurant and you can kind of see on the menu that they have some options, but you're not sure how much they're willing to accommodate, I would call ahead and say, hey, I'm coming in an hour. I'm wondering if this is something you guys could make for me, and tell them what you want. And if they say no, then you've saved yourself a trip. And if they say yes, then you have a great spot to go to. So always ask. There's definitely a lot of, accommodations that you can receive. Now, the other thing is in regards to the water. This might seem like the most high maintenance or like crazy part of all of this, but I will not drink tap water at a restaurant. For me, I am openly and okay to say this, I am a water snob. Even if I didn't care about the toxins and chemicals in the water, for me, it's the taste. I just cannot do tap water. So what I do is I bring my own water, and usually they're okay with that. I'll just bring my glass water bottle with me. So that's something to think about too. If you're really sensitive to chlorinated water or heavy metals in the water, things like that, just bring your own and save yourself having to drink something that you're not wanting to drink. But those are the biggest tips I think I can give you. And to be honest, I would say the amount that you're going to be eating out, at least for the average person, in comparison to your healing journey timeline, it's really not that many times. And once you start to feel better and better, you can start making less and less requests. You might not need to be everything free, and can start to just be maybe gluten and dairy free, or maybe just sugar free, or whatever that looks like for you. So you can slowly start to have more and more things. So I know one last thing is one of my go-tos if I'm at a restaurant and I'm not sure about like their burgers, if there's breadcrumbs, sometimes they won't even know. Like I'll ask them, is there wheat in the burger? And they'll be like, I have no clue. And I'm like, okay, better to be safe than sorry. My go-to is seafood, whether it's a little bit of octopus or some salmon or some kind of shrimp, something. Like I usually would just end up going towards a seafood, as I know that typically if they're making something with seafood, it's probably going to be safe from bread, especially unless it's breaded, but especially if you have it with like a side of rice or quinoa or something like that, or over a gluten-free noodle, then you should be good to go. But yeah, those are my tips, guys. I hope that these help. I know they might seem basic, but they are pretty straightforward, but sometimes, you overlook the different swaps that you can ask for. So just thought I would share that. And looking at restaurants and bars or pubs, like wherever you're going, like I said, if you go and you're not sure, like you're not confident that they're going to make your order the way you've asked for it, tell them it's an allergy. If you just tell them, like usually most of the time if you go out somewhere, they'll ask you, is it an allergy or a preference? If you just say it's a sensitivity or a preference, they're probably going to be really sloppy with the preparation. They're not going to be careful about no cross-contamination and things like that. But if you tell them, I have a true allergy, I cannot have canola oil on my chicken when you cook it, or I cannot have like whatever it is that your allergy is, they will be a lot more attentive because there are potential lawsuits, right? So with that being said, just be very open and vocal and say, you know, I do have an allergy to this. If you can just make it separately, or just please be careful to not use these ingredients, I'd be so grateful. And if they say we cannot do that for you, then at least you have your answer and you can try to look for another place. But yeah, at least mention it to them and make sure that you make it clear that it is an allergy. All right, so what can we do with supplements to maybe try and help if we've gone out to a restaurant and we did have some cross-contamination, or maybe accidentally ate something we shouldn't have, not realizing there was an ingredient in there that we were sensitive or allergic to? What can we do to try to minimize the inflammation? Well, first of all, check with your doctor or practitioner before taking any of the recommended supplements that I'll be sharing with you. But one thing that I would highly, highly recommend would be Perilla. Perilla is incredible. For most people, obviously, again, check with your doctor because there are times where you don't want to take it. But Perilla extract works so well at lowering histamine and that inflammatory Th2 reaction. So if you went ahead and had something inflammatory and did a high dose Perilla, I won't give milligram dosage here. I would always say follow bottle dosage unless you're working with a practitioner. But I typically have my clients do a high dose of Perilla to kind of shut down those inflammatory markers that are going to be elevating. And it really does help to quiet flares or irritations or aggravations from food especially. So Perilla extract, and that is spelled Perilla. That's one of my go-tos. My second thing would be to have something anti-inflammatory while you're there. So I always will bring curcumin capsules with me. Oh, not anymore, because like I said, I can eat normally now. But in the past, I would bring a curcumin capsule, a few of them, and I would take them like right around the time I was about to eat. And that way, whatever I was eating, there was that anti-inflammatory action happening at the same time. You could do this before or after you eat. I would say it probably works best either with or even a little bit before your meal. And then when I would come home, I would flood myself with probiotics to make sure that I'm keeping my probiotic population healthy, especially if there were antibiotics in the meat or anything like that, or if you did drink the tap water, which is chlorinated. And then in terms of like extra support, I would usually finish off the night with an herbal tea that's supporting my liver and my kidneys. You could do a juniper berry tea. You could do like a dandelion tea, something like that. And I also would recommend doing some kind of digestive enzyme. Now, this would be taken with your meal at the restaurant, maybe even before, depending on the enzyme. But this will just help to break down the proteins in the food, because it is the proteins that we typically are reacting to. So if you did accidentally have some dairy or some gluten or whatever it might be, and you take an enzyme, you're going to break it down a little bit better and hoping that you might minimize a little bit more of that reaction. So to recap, digestive enzyme and curcumin with your meal. You could even take the probiotic to the restaurant with you and have it all together, and that would be fine. And then you want to be doing Perilla shortly after, maybe when you get home or something like that, the Perilla extract. You also want to be doing some kind of like liver, kidney supporting tea, just to help support a little bit of detoxification. And those are my go-tos. Now, another thing, if you're really extra and really panicking, if something that you ate, like I've been glutened before, where like a couple of restaurants I go to, they'll have gluten-free onion rings and regular, and then I'll order the gluten-free, and then it comes out, and I ask them, like, are we sure this is gluten-free? And they're like, absolutely. And then they come up to me and they're like, I'm so sorry, we just realized that we sent you the wrong one, or something like that. Like, that has happened so many times to me where I've like full-blown flared up after. So if you're really panicking, if that something like that happened to you, I would say castor oil pack over the gut can be really helpful at bringing inflammation down and pulling some toxicity out as well that way. But that would be my go-to, guys. Obviously, there's a lot more that you could consider doing if you start going into a flare from eating, like taking glutathione and other things. But this is just for basic support when you go out to eat and you want to keep your inflammation as low as you can. So those are my tips, my suggestions. Now you want to be getting to the root of your issues. If you are really reacting to so many foods, you want to really consider doing a gut or pathogen cleanse, because there's a good chance that you just have too many pathogens that are creating so much histamine in your gut, causing you to have all these food sensitivities and causing you to lose your oral tolerance. So if that's something that you are interested in, you can click the link in the description of this podcast and check out my seasonal candida and parasite cleanse and leaky gut protocol, which are so amazing. They just go through everything that you'll need to know and walk you through a step-by-step cleanse to help rebalance your gut. That is all from me for today. Thank you for tuning in and listening wherever you are listening from. I hope you have a beautiful day or night, and I will talk to you in the next episode.